Brian, can I see that paper for a sec? Huh. That's odd. I thought that would be big news.
You thought what would be big news?
Well, there seems to be an absence of a certain ornithological piece. A headline regarding mass awareness of a certain avian variety.
What are you talking about?
Oh, have you not heard? It was my understanding that everyone had heard.
Heard what?
Brian, don't!
Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. But birds are word, well, a bird, bird, bird. But birds are word, well, a bird, bird, bird. But birds are word, well, a bird, bird, bird. But birds are word, Brian, don't you know about the bird? Well, Peter's gonna tell you about the bird. Well, a bird, bird. But birds are word, well, a bird. Surfing.
Why do I do this to you? Why do I do this to myself? I chose that for multiple reasons. One, Peter Griffin, fan of the New England Patriots. Second, they're in the New England area. Third, have you heard the word? The word is that the Seahawks are going to beat the New England Patriots. That's my prediction. I predicted it so hard, I even painted my fingernails with the blood of my enemies. They got like this metallic blue going on. Welcome. I'm Camden MacLaren. This is First Kick Seahawks, the show where we prepare you for the first kick of every play by game day. Game day is right around the corner, and I would appreciate it if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you really want to support the show, you can always buy me a coffee. There's a description in the link. There's a link in the description below. There's a description in the link below. I guess it's both kind of the same if you're a coder. I just woke up from a hell of a nap. You know I'm a football nerd when in the nap, I'm like Charlie Day with a whiteboard connecting everything together. I was trying to describe in my dream that an odd front defense and an even front defense is exactly the same, which means that if you have 5 offensive linemen, it's the same as if you have 5 offensive linemen and a tight end, which is 6. But if you have 5 offensive linemen and a tight end and a slot receiver, which is 7, that's an odd front, which is the same, which means that you got to respond accordingly if you're a linebacker or a strong safety. And I woke up somewhere around how do you cover a whip route. Anyways, that is not what today's stream is about. We're covering the New England Patriots. And where do we start? Well, we're starting with that Bengals game. That's where we're going to start. So people laughed. They laughed at the Bengals for losing to the New England Patriots. We're like 3 years removed from people being terrified of the New England Patriots, and now people are laughing when they beat a team? That's not how football works, folks. That should never be how football works. And I want to talk a bit about how they beat that Bengals team. First of all, I always thought that the Bengals were overrated, but week 1, the Bengals missed 13 tackles. Week 1 is typically the week where teams miss tackles, they have bad pursuit angles, they have coverage and communication issues. What's most interesting, though, is that they have done this before. That is not the worst amount of missed tackles that the Bengals have had in recent memory. In fact, it is the second. In the last 2 years. I have a link to it, actually, in the description below. I did it right that time. The word is, in the last 2 seasons, it is the second most tackles in a game since the start of the 2023 season. So week 1, 2023, the Bengals played the Browns. Now, if you watched our stream 2 days ago, I want to say it was 2 days ago. I don't have that number. They didn't post it. I don't think they posted it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's fucking more than 13. That's what I know. That's what I know. More than 13 tackles missed in a game is not a fucking good game. You know who was the offensive coordinator of that Week 1 Browns game that the Bengals lost to? Alex Van Pelt. And we talked about this on Wednesday. Alex Van Pelt is now the offensive coordinator and the offensive line guru of this 2024 New England Patriots. This dude ran all over this Cincinnati Bengals team twice. Not only did he do that, he embarrassed them by making them miss tackles all over the goddamn field. So that's something that we need to be prepared for. If this was the Pete Carroll era defense, in just about any era, even Legion of Boom, I would tell you to be a little concerned, because even the Legion of Boom, some of their players had issues tackling Week 1. It was the way he ran his camps. He wouldn't get them prepared to do fundamental football the right way. But what we saw during the preseason and what we saw during that Week 1 matchup against the Broncos is it didn't matter if it was deep in the field. It didn't matter if it was a swing pass in a gap. We were thumping people. They'd catch a ball, thump a person, catch a ball, thump a person, swing over there, crossing route, seam route. A guy was in position. I saw like maybe 3 missed tackles in that game, all over pursuit because somebody was getting ready to hammer somebody, not just them getting beat because they didn't look underprepared. And then immediately somebody was there to gang tackle. We should be ready to raffle stomp this team. People are saying that we should be afraid of their running back Stevenson. I think we're going to handle Stevenson just fine. He might make a guy miss. Mostly, it should be a good test to see how we handle power running plays. They have 2 guards in particular that I find interesting. In the 2024 draft, New England Patriots selected at 103 Texas A&M guard Layden Robinson in the 4th round. He is at right guard. You can see him pulling particularly to the right side for power plays. It opened up the C gap a lot. And so Stevenson got a lot of his missed tackles on that side by putting him in advantageous situations to either stiff arm or just slip by a tackler. On the left guard position, I think this guy played in Canada, Sidney Sow, which is a weird name to say because I want to say Sydney, but his name is Sidney Sow. He played in Canada. He was drafted in the 2023 NFL draft in the 4th round, 117th overall. He also pulls a lot. He pulls to the left side. So they'll do power on either side. You'll also just see them trap play, chunk up the middle. What you'll see for both of these guys is they're not necessarily the best pass blockers. They're not necessarily the best run blockers, but they will get you a good 3 yards. They will hold up long enough for the running back to get to the gap and then make something happen. If you then miss a tackle, he's going to explode and get about 7 yards, and the second guy is going to bring him down. Their goal is not to explode all over the field. Their goal is to make sure that you, the Seattle Seahawks, have as few drives as humanly possible. We are going to keep the ball in our hands for as long as we can. How many minutes did they have the ball? Let's see. Time of possession versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The Patriots had the ball for 34 minutes. The Cincinnati Bengals had the ball for 26 minutes. So they beat them by about 8 minutes there. Mission accomplished. A lot of that had to do with the fact that some of these drives they had 13 plus plays. You would see a 3-yard run, a 3-yard pass, a 4-yard pass, and then a 4-yard run, a 3-yard run, a 3-yard run, a 3-yard pass, a 3-yard run. Brissett would scramble for 16 yards, a 3-yard run, and they just kept doing it. They wanted to keep the ball in their hands and ask their quarterback to do as little as possible. It would be, we're going to run a chunk over here, pull the guard. They would then pull the guard over, and then it would fool the linebacker, and the linebacker would slide over, and then wherever the guard was, the Stevenson would just rush into where the guard spot opening was, and then that center would slide in, right? And he might hit the A gap, he might hit the B gap. It was a very simple scheme against a defense that could not tackle and could not get off their blocks. But the safeties could tackle really well. They could cover really well too. You could see that whenever the Patriots receiver would catch a ball, they would get dropped immediately. So they weren't getting a lot of yards after contact or after the catch. They would just miss tackles against that piss-poor linebacking core. So if our defense plays like they did last week, we could see a team that scores 13 points. We could win 21-13 and then go home no problem. We could win 21-6 no problem, as long as we can put them in 3rd and long situations. The thing is that they are willing to settle for the 3 yards in the cloud of dust type of situation, right? Type of formula, which they were able to do against a piss-poor Bengals defense. We're a good defense in week 1. And that Bengals offensive line is a good offensive line. This Patriots defensive line is like bottom 5. Like maybe bottom 10 if things start to balance out. They were not doing well when it comes to blocking. They were regularly getting sieved, and Brissett was just having to get rid of the ball on step 3, which was leading to those short little passes. You're not going to see Brissett have time to get to step 7 and even attempt a deep pass. But when he does attempt a pass, he makes a good decision with the ball. What you'll see is he likes to wait for step 5 because they'll run a crosser. Almost every time they'll just have the slot run a slant. They'll have the tight end run a slant, and he'll open up the blind spot, which they'll have cleared out. And then when nothing's open, he'll hit that, and then the guy will immediately get tackled, or maybe he'll be able to slip and go up the field. But it's a nice open spot where he can chuck the ball and then get an easy completion. That's his swing play. That way they can continue to sell play action and have the running back crash right next to the tackle. You will rarely see Stevenson line up in a position where it's, oh, he's going to go out there. He's always going to be behind the quarterback, rushing right at him. Which will be great for us because Julian Love and our corners are fucking fast. I would expect someone like Devin Witherspoon to shut that play all the way down. Their receiving core, as far as like who to be afraid of, they got Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, Rashawn Bew, Javon Baker, Demario Douglas, Yvonne. We were once called the pedestrian receiving core. This is a pedestrian ass receiving core. Okay? They have a bunch of pieces and they don't got a lot going on. We just need to play some good defense, but they got a really smart scheme. next year or the year after, this New England offense is going to be really fucking good because of their coordinators. But they got no pieces, right? They got no pieces in the skill position. What you'll see though is that they use their tight ends a lot. What did I open with? You got the five offensive line, and then it's the same as if you have 7. It's an odd front. So we're just going to have an odd front on our defensive side, which is fine because we want to have an odd front on our defensive side anyways. Let's fucking meet up. Make sure that Hooper, their tight end, doesn't get any fucking seam routes on us. Their offense won't be an issue. Don't miss any tackles. Make sure the guard doesn't fucking pop us, either of them. And we'll hold them to under 10 points. We'll hold them to 13 points. And then just don't give them a muffed punt, interception on the second play of the game, and 2 safeties. Right? We'll be fucking fine. The defensive side of the ball, that is a different story. Let's talk about their Pro Bowlers. Pro Bowlers, you want to talk about Pro Bowlers? They don't fucking have any. In 2022, they did have some. They had Mac Jones. They had cornerback J.C. Jackson. They had linebacker Matthew Judon. And then they had Matthew Slater on special teams. All 4 of those guys are gone. They have no Pro Bowlers on this team. This is a brand new goddamn team. So you don't know who on this team could be that next Pro Bowler. Most teams have at least one guy. It could be fucking anybody. Respect every football player, right? We've regularly seen some guy get snubbed. We've seen a guy who should not be a Pro Bowler become a Pro Bowler because the guy who's supposed to go to the Pro Bowl decide he doesn't want to, so he sits out, and then suddenly dumb fuck becomes one. Right now he's playing fucking video games and wherever. Right, Pro Bowl is a joke. Regardless, they don't have any big names, I guess is what I'm getting at. But there is a couple names that we need to be afraid of. Where did I put him? I scrolled all the way out of the way. I scrolled out of the way because I wanted to talk about someone. I just had him, son of a bitch. Damn it, Camden. Here he is. Courtesy of Pro Football Reference. Here we got Keon White. Keon White, it is his second season. He was a second-round pick for the New England Patriots last year. He has 2.5 sacks as of that first game. 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. Last year in 4 games, he had a sack and 5 quarterback hits. So he's already fucking trucking through where he was. What's most interesting about him is he does play on the outside. And as I mentioned, the current coaching staff are a mix of outside linebackers and defensive ends. So he is also taking that rookie jump that defensive players tend to take. On the offensive side, they tend to have good rookie campaigns and then get scouted and nerfed out on their sophomore slump. On the defensive side, they tend to not have the physical attributes ready and then necessarily the knowledge and know-how of offensive schemes, and then they take a sophomore jump on the defensive side. This could be his year to take that jump. Expect him to be over Stone Forsythe, who has been struggling throughout his career to stop the passer. the pass rusher. He is expected to start at right tackle because George Fant is continued to be listed as doubtful. I don't expect him to play this week, which is a bummer. Even then, he was never the best pass blocker. We always had him as a run blocker. He would be better than Stone Forsythe. I would almost want to see what Michael Jarrell could do, even though Jarrell is a rookie. Stone Forsythe, we know what he is, but it's another case of just run the goddamn ball. We have it's a math thing, right? It's a math thing, especially against a really good defense. You need to have them respect the footwork of the offensive line so that they have to move a certain way before the quarterback hits step 3. I talk about this all the time. Step 1, the defense needs to be here. Step 2, they then see the handoff. Who has the ball? The quarterback and the running back. They both are touching it. And then step 3, that's typically when the quarterback is about to hand off the ball to try to attempt to pass really fast. If you're never running the ball, defenders are going to cheat and they're going to go to their passing step 3 assignment. If you run the ball, they have to wait one step and see if the running back actually took it. Even if it's half a step, and then they have really good reflexes, that is enough for you to get Tyler Lockett just a little bit of a fingertip ahead to complete that pass on third down and win the game. You need to run the ball, even if it's for a 3-yard gain, even if it's for a 2-yard gain, even if it's for a 0-yard gain, because it causes the safeties in particular to have to wait just a fucking second to see if it's a running play or a passing play, especially in a league right now that is giving up an average of 93 yards per game, especially in a league right now where more than half of the league last week didn't even pass for 200 yards. People keep saying to me, it's a passing league. I keep saying that the league is a pendulum. You go for like 15 years where it's a passing league. You go for like 15 years where it's a running league. You know what somebody said to me the other day in person? All of these running backs suck right now. Nobody runs for 300 yards anymore. And that's why he doesn't watch anymore. Nobody's Barry Sanders anymore. No one's Terrell Davis anymore. And I'm like, well, nobody's a bell cow 3-down back anymore because they rotate backs. And now people are saying nobody's Peyton Manning anymore. Nobody's Phillip Rivers anymore. Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, because you don't have quarterbacks throwing the same type of routes anymore. You used to have the Tampa 2 in the fucking 90s and the early 2000s, and then it switched to like a cover 3, and then it switched to like a cover 4, and right now we're in like a cover 6. Pete Carroll did a cover 3 specifically against Peyton Manning, and at the time everyone was starting to try to emulate Peyton Manning. Then everyone tried to emulate the cover 3 system we had. Once people started beating that, Vic Fangio came out and did his cover 6, so everyone's trying to do cover 6, and now we have people going back to do the cover 2 system with a mix of cover 4. It's just a mix of, are you doing odd coverage or are you doing even coverage? And then what number of coverages are you doing above it? Are you doing 1, 3, 5, or 7? Are you doing 2, 4, or 6? Or I guess you could do 8, but that would be really fucking hard. It's all been done. Which is kind of Mike McDonald's whole thing. He tells people all the time everything's been done. It's just a matter of mentality. So, yeah, run the fucking ball, because we're in a current era right now where defenses are designed to stop the pass. Because even Patrick Mahomes is having trouble hitting 300 yards. Hell, everyone's having trouble hitting 200 yards passing, but we see regularly, some undrafted running back will hit 150 yards. And then their backup will have 50 yards. Run the fucking ball. Run it a lot. Be smart about it, right? You can't just run at a dude. You got to run in a certain way that creates a numerical advantage, something that fucking Darrell Bevell and Tom Cable never understood. But this is an era of running the ball, no longer necessarily passing the ball. It's the opposite. And that's how you beat this Patriots team. So you can set up the pass so that JSN can go and do what he does. So Tyler Lockett can beat the third guy. I'm not saying that you can't just beat the guy third up, but if you have a guy like Keon White teeing off a Stone Forsythe, you can't have him just going balls to the wall as hard as fucking possible at that stone. You need him to have to look for a second so that Stone has a chance to fucking shove him out of the way and give Geno a chance to slide up and complete a pass, because it's about that one extra step. He just needs one extra step. How many times were you like, man, he was this close. He just needed one step to complete that pass. Well, yeah, you do that by running the ball, so he has that chance when he needs to do it on 2nd down and 5 instead of making it 3rd and 9. So let's run the ball. What's interesting about this Patriots team is that they're built a little different than I like to build teams. But it makes sense. So the way I build teams is from the center out. The way Pete Carroll would build teams, to be clear, center to the quarterback's visible side. Quarterback looks to the right side, so you build center to left, right? Richard Sherman's side, you build to that side. Strong safety, right, is more important than the right side cornerback, because the strong safety needs to be able to crash, cover the tight end seam, needs to be able to cover the running back that's crashing on that side. Things like that. That's my opinion. That's just one bitch's opinion. Pete Carroll, he liked to cover from the defensive backfield forward. Currently, Leslie Frazier, he says you need to cover from the defensive line backwards. That includes corners that can cover and press, right? But it's from the front backwards. When you look at this Patriots team, it's from the hash marks out. Fascinating. It's fascinating because it makes so much goddamn sense. Because if you stand at the hash marks and the play goes inside, you can easily get inside just as easily as you can get outside. It takes just as much time. It's the same amount of steps. It saves you so much steps. If you have your best players on the hash marks instead of your best players all the way in the back or all the way in the front, then no matter where the other team puts the ball, your best player is going to get there at the same amount of time as if they put it somewhere else. It's actually really smart. So their best players are their safeties, their outside linebackers, and their defensive ends. And they all line up on the hash marks. And so at the beginning, I said the bird is the word because we need to give them the bird. This is what I mean by the bird. We need to run some type of seam, some type of vertical every single play. It doesn't need to come from the Y. It needs to come close to the offensive line. But every single play, whether it's a running play or whether it's a screen, whether it's intended to be a slant, it doesn't matter. It could be JSN. It could be Zach Charbonnet because Kenneth Walker is expected to be out. Anybody. They need to be running straight past one of the safeties every play. Maybe they take a play off as a way to pull that dude out of the way, particularly if we have DK running a dig route. But I call it the bird because you're saying, fuck you, I'm going this way. What happens is you put the safety in a mathematical problem, and you're in a situation where they have to follow you. You put the linebacker in a situation where they have to follow you, and you put the defensive end in a situation where, especially if it's a coverage defensive end, where they might have to back up into you for the first 3 steps to make sure that you're not running a hitch. And you just run that tree over and over and over again. So if you have JSN doing that and you just have a check like what we saw last week, but the Bengals did this actually. It was one of their most successful plays on the outside. The problem was it was on the outside. It takes too long to get the ball out there. You need to keep it up on the inside. If you see that the guy is 10 yards deep and you need 5 yards, you just run a 5-yard hitch and you throw it into the dude's fucking pelvis. And then he catches the ball, gets popped. You have guys with good hands like George Fant run a seam. If the outside linebacker carries and he's above you, but the defensive end doesn't, you just have him run a fucking hitch or a stick and you pop him. Easy yards, move forward. Then you run the next play, probably a run play, you pick up like 2 or 3 yards. Next play, now it's 3rd and 3. You run a fucking out route, something like that. But you always have somebody running fucking forward. You need to keep the outside linebacker and the safety preoccupied. On step 7, there needs to be a safety covering. And then you need to have JSN running a stick out. You need to have Tyler Lockett on the outside, just maybe, or a tight end, right? Just running a corner. You need to have a situation where that safety has 2 guys that he needs to cover and way too much space to cover. And then because we have the most accurate quarterback in the league, that's how you get your deep 20-yard explosives. Eventually one of those is going to pop. Underneath, and you don't use DK for these. Underneath, you just make sure that the guys with the best hands, the guys who when they catch the ball and get hit, don't drop the ball. That's going to be your Tyler Lockett's. That's going to be your JSNs. That's going to be your Noah Fants. Farrell Brown's out. Whatever. You run wheel routes outside so that the safety has to follow that, or the outside linebacker has to follow that. It creates a nice opening lane, creates a middle finger so that Geno Smith has another running lane for him to run up the middle, right? Now the linebacker has to try to respect the middle lane as well. Create a middle finger and then have all this little stuff on the outside. That is how you beat this defense, because they are sure tacklers, but they don't necessarily have any big weaknesses, but they just have a very simple scheme that is focused on the hash marks. So just occupy the hash marks. I will say one thing that they like to do, though, to be wary of, and why the middle finger is important. If you run anchors, you have a tight end, and then you have the slot next to the tight end, and then you have either the flanker, another slot, or the wide out right next to it, right? It's a 3-man bundle right next to the offensive line. What they'll do is they'll overload that because they have everyone covering that, right? And then they'll have the safety over the top of it, so it's 4 guys. They'll overload that front and rush the quarterback and get there before step 5 because those guys are running routes. They're not there to block. And it's a smart scheme. Your quarterback needs to get the ball out at step 3 because he's dead by step 5. What you do when you run those types of routes based off of a scheme is it creates a gigantic opportunity. So you got the seam, right? If they don't respect the seam, then it's going to be a touchdown or it's going to be a 40-yard gain. So since you've been running the seam every single play, that thing's going to be covered. You're not going to anticipate overload necessarily. But what it'll do is it'll give you an out so that you know whenever they line up like that, okay, it's overload most likely. One of my slants that I already have designed is going to be my check down. I just need to throw to the hole to avoid the overload, or it'll tell the defense not to overload you. Now you might say, well, don't run the seam, use that as the counter. It will take too much time. Right? It'll just take too much time. But on the overload, the first key for Gino will be to read that safety and then look for the hole. He'll just need to do it really fucking fast. But ultimately, it takes too much time to get ready to throw that deep. You're going to want to throw underneath, and you'll probably want to throw the opposite direction of the overload. If the defense is schemed well, you're not going to be able to complete a seam pass, but you're still going to want to be able to run that so that if Gino avoids the overload rush or if it gets blocked up, he doesn't complete that thing for a touchdown. So it's unlikely that he's going to be able to throw that on an overload rush. So just make sure to do that so that you can clear out space for the check down on a slant or an out route. I want to see definitely, other than those quick out routes and in slant plays underneath, the wheel routes to clear out space, corner routes, right, all teeing off of that seam route for the middle finger. But most importantly, DK Metcalf, he needs to all day long run the 15-yard dig. He needs to run the 15-yard dig. He might get 2 passes thrown his way, but that's something that's going to need to be teed up off of other passes, and eventually it's just going to open up, and we're just going to crush him for that 15-yard dig. Because as soon as these linebackers get pulled outside and down, and then that seam on either side or the wheel or the fucking stick nod opens up that safety on the outside, we're going to finally get cover 3 or cover 1. We're going to get a situation where we got a single high safety, and that's going to open up DK right in the middle. And we're going to hit that 15-yard dig route. That's what I want to see. Is I just want to see him taking up so much fucking space and getting just a body positioning advantage over the defense, which is going to take time. But against a good defense, this shit takes time. He might beat people one-on-one, but the defender's going to have safety help over the top. What he's going to have a great opportunity against, though, is hitting corner routes in the end zone. They haven't been doing well defending corner routes in the end zone historically the last couple years. I don't know if that's true against piss poor hands. DK's known for dropping, those types of passes, but he would get good opportunities. Lockett could catch it. JSN could catch it, but against the Bengals, they got beat multiple times in the right-hand corner route. Not a fade route, right? Just a normal get up there and then go, right? The ball will land in there. You don't need to jump or anything. Just fucking put your hands out. The ball's going to be there. Run a corner route for DK Metcalf. All right. I'm already like 20 minutes late to something. So let's quickly go over the injury report. Courtesy of Seahawks.com. Kenneth Walker, oblique, doubtful. Zach Charbonnet's doubtful as in I don't think he's fucking playing. Oblique injury takes a lot out of you. It's hard to breathe. It's very easy to make worse. Don't start him this week. Because Tua is out next week, probably don't start him next week either. Let's keep him for the Lions game, which is going to be a challenge, right? George Fant, doubtful. I don't think he's fucking playing. We talked about this. Keep him for the Lions game, or beyond, right? Knee injuries are tough when your body is so fucking big. Uchenna Nwosu is out. Tyrell Dodson, he's got that shoulder injury, which was a surprise to me. Tyrese Knight is his backup. I was a bit surprised again to see Dodson out. Tyrese Knight has shown to be a sure tackler since he came to Seattle. The big question for him when he was at UConn was, and then transitioning to the NFL, was his pursuit angles, but most importantly, could he switch from a hip drop tackle to a standard upright tackle? He has shown to be a great tackler, and his ability to accelerate and then just bring a guy down is awesome. He just went up, well, he did not go up a lot against that Broncos offensive line. If he was to start this week, he'd be going up against guards a lot. They'd be testing him a lot on those outside runs, so it'd be a really good challenge for him. He, in college, from the tape I saw, did not show to be good at breaking off of blocks to bring people down. So I would rather have Tyrell Dodson, but because of his athleticism, it might not be a problem because he is so fucking fast, the guard might not be able to get there. Jerome Baker, he's got a hamstring, questionable. I would expect him to play. It's okay. If Dodson is out, maybe rest Jerome Baker. If Dodson is in, start Jerome Baker. The thing with hamstrings is they can easily fuck up your knee. They can make things so much worse. And I don't know if Drake Thomas is that dude. Sure, Tyrese Knight could probably play outside linebacker as well. But I don't know if he has the mass for it. And that's all she wrote. That's all she wrote. I didn't realize how fucking long I went off of this. These streams always go much longer than I thought. I was shooting for like 30 minutes and it ends up going for 42. And that's the answer. Thank you so much for being here. Please like the video and subscribe to First Kick Seahawks. Maybe buy me a coffee. The link is in the description below. I got it right that time. I got to go to a function, which I'm like 25 minutes late for. So that's why I'm trying to hurry up. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Camden MacLaren. Go Seahawks. I will try to do a video tomorrow.